And next on our agenda is for us to hear from Tina. So let me tell you a little bit of background about Tina. So Tina is a healthcare IT leader whose mission is to develop IT teams to become valuable contributors in our organization's growth. She sets measurable goals aligned to organizational targets, so IT teams move from a cost center to a value add. A few of her achievements include having her department be named Best Hospital IT Department by Healthcare IT News, and year after year scoring in the 90% and higher in employee engagement scores. Completing technology design for a 25-story building, including a third data center, and implementing nonstop computing was another achievement. And she has designed and implemented ITIL incident service requests and other processes across IT teams. In other words, balancing technology operations, ongoing growth, and fiscal responsibility is her specialty. She stays abreast of the latest trends and best practices by maintaining many certifications, reading and participating in professional organizations, and her certifications include, but are not limited to, Certified Healthcare CIO, ITIL Expert, and Certified Information System Security Professional. In the time that I have known Tina, she has always gone above and beyond to share her knowledge and resources, and we thank her for doing so with all of us this evening. Tina.
You are so gracious. That was a beautiful introduction. I hope I can live up to all that.
I know that you can.
Oh, well, thank you all for sticking around and letting me share a little bit with you all about the passion that we all share in diversity. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Um, as we are all aware, there is a critical importance in diversity in the workplace. We've been talking about it. You may even understand how critical it is for high performing teams. Many of us believe this is the sole focus of executives or human resources. You may wonder whether you hold any power to enact change or promote diversity within your daily operations. Well, let's chat about ways you can start making a difference today. There are three areas where each of us can, regardless of our role within our IT teams, make a difference regarding diversity. They're inclusive collaboration, mentorship, as well as advocacy, and continuous education. Let's dive in. The first area in which we can make a difference is inclusive collaboration. If we have multi-company experience, and many of us do, we've realized the challenge with diversity in IT. We've talked about it this evening. According to the National Center for Women in Information Technology, 27% of the IT workforce are women, 3% of whom are women in color, 7% are Asian, and only 2% are Hispanic or Latina. The fact that these numbers have not moved much in 20 years is a discussion for another time. What this means right now is that our teams and meetings are likely 73% men and 27% women. Think about the last meeting you were in. What was the mix of men, women, bigender, non-binary, and other genders? What were the various age ranges? Think about the ethnicities, the disabilities represented. How diverse were your meetings really? How about your last 3 meetings? Inclusive collaboration is a method of working together that intentionally includes the diverse contributions of all team members, ensuring that everyone's perspectives are heard, valued, and integrated into the decision-making process. This method helps bring to the front the benefit of diverse viewpoints. So how can we, as IT leaders or even individual contributors, make a difference when it comes to inclusive collaboration. I've got two ideas for you. First, practice round robin approach in a meeting. Have you ever been in a meeting where one person dominated the conversation? In contrast, have you ever been in a meeting where the leader ensured everyone had a chance to speak? It's a big difference, right? We want to ensure everyone's ideas are heard. If we are inclusive, allowing everyone around the room to speak, it will enable us to hear from everyone's point of view. Someone mentioned to me the other day that he was colorblind and could not see what I was referring to when I said the red part. I was a little embarrassed and then grateful. I felt so bad that I had not considered this in developing the report, and then so thankful that he had mentioned it so I could add shapes and numbers to the labels. If we had not gone round robin and given everyone space to speak, it may never have come up. It may seem small, but how would you have felt if you could not read a report upon which I was basing part of your performance? Second, use virtual collaboration boards to their fullest extent. Many of us have tools such as Microsoft Teams, Slack, Trello, and Asana. They are quick communication tools and project management solutions, but they have so much more to offer. These tools can provide equal footing for remote workers, ensuring everyone has access to the same information all the time. They also allow everyone to see all contributions within the system, which ensures everyone's voice is heard, regardless of seniority or location. There are accessibility features in these tools, which make them usable for people with disabilities. Lastly, facilitate different working styles, and they allow us to think a little differently using these tools. Explore the tools with the team and see which team members respond to which features. A third way to support inclusive collaboration is note-taking rotation. Have you ever noticed that sometimes it's the person who takes the best notes who gets stuck taking them all the time? Is this you? This has a few impacts. First, sometimes we may accidentally stereotype people because they have feminine qualities, or we're subconsciously stating they're actually of lower rank in the company. Second, we're saying they have the time. Taking and sending notes takes time. Let's get blunt. Let's not pretend it doesn't. Editing and sending notes after meetings usually takes 15 to 20 minutes. If the same person is being asked to do this role for 4 meetings a week, this is an extra hour of work a week. The best way to encourage inclusiveness is to recommend that note-taking be rotated at every meeting. I find using a standard template, rotating the responsibility by last name, and having the expectation that the notes will be sent within 4 business hours works for most teams. It's essential to set the expectation up front. When I've made these recommendations, very few teams have resisted. But you have to make this about spreading the workload, not the individual. Most people will respond. By incorporating these practices for inclusive collaboration, we acknowledge and harness the collective intelligence of diverse teams. So, the second area where we can promote diversity is mentorship which many of you talked about, and advocacy. Mentorship doesn't require a title, it requires initiative. And I'm not recommending you start some vast, big program. Here are two small things you can do to promote diversity through mentorship and advocacy. First, have what I like to call an inclusive insight exchange. You can pair with colleagues from different backgrounds to exchange skills and broaden perspectives. The goal here is to share what you deliver for the organization, your skills, and significant job functions. And you'll learn the same from the other person. You want to focus on the overlaps between your two worlds. But inevitably, you're going to share how you got into your careers and your backgrounds. You will develop a relationship. This exchange broadens both of your views. The second way to promote mentorship and advocacy is spotlight sharing. If you're recognized for your work, share the spotlight with a colleague who contributed but may not be as visible as you. Sharing the spotlight helps build an inclusive culture, strengthens collaboration, emphasizes collective achievement, and allows you to practice a little humility, which is a valuable quality in a leader. These actions don't just uplift others, they build a culture of collective recognition and shared success. The third and final area where we can promote diversity is continuous education, like this group. A personal commitment to education on diversity is crucial. Part of continuous education is to engage with and seek out diversity-focused content intentionally. This could be subscribing to diversity-focused YouTube channels, podcasts, or newsletters to stay informed and aware. This type of content is readily available online. Just be sure you check the source. LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, and many professional organizations offer courses. Your company may have an engaging diversity, equity, and inclusion or DEI program. However you go about it, though, understand that this is an evolving landscape, and it really requires an investment of a little bit of your time and energy regularly. The second and final thing I'm going to recommend in this space is around bias awareness, and it involves the use of inclusive language tools. Come on, we are in IT after all. We can use the latest AI software to analyze and improve the inclusiveness of our communications. There are many ways AI software educates and promotes us to remove bias in our writing. The most common is the prompting to use inclusive language. For example, replacing gendered terms like chairman with chairperson or you guys with everyone. My favorite tools are Grammarly and the Hemingway editor, but there's many more available. You want to try a few and find one that works for you. So being proactive about self-education and bias awareness can ripple out to influence the whole team positively because you're going to be talking about what you're learning. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, I highly recommend the book, The Loudest Duck: Moving Beyond Diversity While Embracing Differences to Achieve Success at Work. Author Laura Liswood talks about getting past the Noah's Ark paradox. You know, the concept of getting two of each, going two by two, and getting to diversity of thought, which is the whole end game after all, right? Well, there you have it. These are three significant areas where you can start making a difference today, right now, in your work environment. Inclusive collaboration, mentorship as well as advocacy, and continuous education. Diversity isn't a challenge to overcome, but it's an opportunity to embrace. It makes us better at what we do, and it makes our solutions, the technology solutions we build, more comprehensive and our teams stronger, our work environment richer. Remember, each one of us is a vital part of this journey, and we need to lead by example to make our industry more inclusive for everyone. Thanks so much for letting me visit with you all today. I had fun.
Thank you, Tina. Any questions for Tina?
Really, no questions? I usually get a ton of questions.
I feel like once I process some more, I'm going to have more questions. But I thought that your talk was super powerful, especially the like advocacy and speaking up for other people. It's something that I've talked about a lot with my husband. He's an engineer, and it's just so important, like especially for men on your team, to speak up and be like, that was a great idea, because it's so common that, a woman will say something and it gets totally ignored until a man says it. So
Yeah.
if you have somebody that, you can trust on your team to be like, hey, like Sophie had this idea that is, this, whatever.
Or the spotlight. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And it's interesting when we start talking about it and we start, especially those of us who've been around a while, those of us who are a little more seasoned and a little more senior, when we start doing it, it becomes a thing. I find I've worked in mostly male shops most of my life, and I find that when I start doing it, my male colleagues begin to mirror. Even when I was quite young in my career, when I would do it, my male colleagues would mirror. Um, so that's an interesting phenomenon as well.
That's really cool. I've never heard anybody talk about folks mirroring each other. And when I reflect on like some of my experiences, I see that influence now that you bring it up. And I also love what Sophie said, because I definitely felt there was a really strong theme of like championing other people, and it like unlocked this core memory for me. After I took my boot camp, I got my first job as a UI developer at a health insurance company. I worked with all men, and I remember that I was always just kind of there and always wanted to feel like I was part of the group, and never did, until one day there was a new guy that transitioned to my team from another team, and we were in one of our scrum meetings and we were analyzing like story points for certain work, and he turned to me and he goes, "Allison, what do you think about that?" And I was like, "Me? You know what I think?" And that was like the first time I ever felt like I was allowed to like take up space in that room, and that my voice was going to be heard. And so like definitely validate everything that you said, and I really appreciate you sharing those tips, and I'm going to practice being more aware of like how I can do things that other people will mirror, and
The
also
spotlight sharing, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you spotlight share, if you find yourself taking notes, the information about it taking up, if you're doing it, 15 minutes a week, and if you're doing it 2, 3, 4 times, if you really take the focus off of you and just make it a labor thing, that gets extremely, how many of you get stuck writing notes, taking notes? Yeah. And you're the
Yeah,
woman, right? You're the woman.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think it's part of the whole I forget what it's called. It's got a specific term, but basically women end up getting pigeonholed into
Yeah.
like watering the plants in the office, and
All the
refilling the
housekeeping,
coffee,
all
and
the
exactly.
yeah, we get all the housekeeping duty, all the housekeeping duties. Yeah. And I had to very early um, figure out what I was going to do about that. And I did not share, and I will share with you all. My husband and I worked together side by side for the first 15 years of my career, and it was lovely. And now we kicked off a little side thing, and are working again together, and I absolutely loved it. He would get so frustrated when our bosses would ask me to do something, and I would demur, and he would later on come to me and say, "What are you?" He would never ask a man to do that. And had he not been there and seen it and told me in the 2000s that, I probably would have not grown as fast. I was very fortunate. Very fortunate. But that's where the note-taking rotation birthed, because I said, "Well, what am I going to do about it?" And he said, "You need to come up with something." And I said, "Okay." And then I walked into a meeting and I said, "I'm feeling a little sick today. I think here's the list of everybody's name alphabetically." And of course, we had the same last name. I said, "The next person on the list is Johnny Baugh. Why don't you take notes? And then next week, Sarah can take notes." If my husband gave me daggers, and I said, and that'll be more fair.
Tina, I love you. Thank you. Any other questions for Tina? Yes, Laura.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Tina. That's very helpful. I do have a question. So in the work environment, I do find, I mean, yes and no, I guess until you pointed out, I didn't realize, but I have to do something about this because I do take notes a lot, and it's a way of keeping track and holding people, men, accountable for their homework. I often call myself the babysitter of the,
That's right.
of especially the product team. But I do have a question, because I do find that so my leadership team is men only, and I do get asked a lot. I hear my opinion is heard, and many of my ideas are adopted, which is great. But I haven't had a salary raise in 2 years, and I'm still in the same position. Yet I'm celebrated, and every day every year my review is like, "Yeah, keep doing what you're doing," but growth is just not happening. And so I wanted to know if if this resonates with you, and if you maybe have an insight how I could get out of this.
Yeah. That's a great question. And I tell you what, I did much the same the first 15 years. I would be celebrated, and then 2 years would go by, nothing, 3 years, and then I would make noises about leaving. And then they would, "What job do you want?" We created the job, and I would get enough of a promotion to keep me there. And that went on for 15 years, that they would give me just enough to keep me there. And then finally, my husband and I got to the point where one of us had to go because it couldn't be the other one's boss. So that it's unfortunate, isn't it? A man would never settle for that. Isn't that sad? So finally I stumbled across a professional coach, and she finally opened my eyes, and she said, "So you just need to decide. Yeah. Does it need to be every year? Does it need to be every 2 years? Because at some point we get to where it's not every year, right? It's not every year that it's going to be a promotion or a raise. But does it need to be like in 3 years, it needs to be 10%. So whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what does it needs to be? And if it's not by a certain time, then you start looking." And in the last 6 years, that's what I've done, and I've changed jobs 3 times. And my salary has changed dramatically too.
Thank you. That's great
Okay.
advice.
Other questions for Tina?
You all are so fun. I love being with you all. This is my favorite. I love this. As Allison said, just being with other women, right? I think many of you said that, just being with other women who are in tech, in our field. It's very, Laura, you said it too. I mean, when we first started, right? I think we're probably the same. I graduated from college in 92.
Oh yeah, me too. 92.
We walked into school I started in civil engineering because there wasn't even a computer engineering. I was one of two. When I walked over to the computer engineering school, there were 4 women. It was like, it's
Oh,
awesome.
sorry.
So y'all are
Well-
wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, Carrie, 3, right? Crazy time. So yeah. Y'all connect with us, please. I dropped the link in my chat for this book. If you want it, it's a lovely book. If you haven't read it, it's an absolutely lovely book. It really is. The Loudest Duck is a perspective. You've heard the squeaky wheel gets the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? In other cultures, the loudest duck gets shot. So it's important that we understand diversity in cultures and how people, women are to be seen, not heard, right? All those kinds of things. She's a fascinating person. What's your read? Thank you.
Tina. All right, this brings us to the close of our quarterly meeting for the evening. I'm going to leave you with some to-dos. We really want to encourage more folks to get engaged on the Grapevine platform. You know, you can connect with people there and share. We're going to try as a leadership team to continue to engage with you via that platform. We, of course, are asking that you continue to make your quarterly donation. If you would, take a look at some nonprofits. Dig in there because we're going to need to nominate at least 3 new nonprofits for next quarter. And then follow us on YouTube. The link is right here. And also follow us on LinkedIn. Link is here. Invite a friend. If you know somebody like, oh, I know so-and-so who I think would really enjoy being a part of this group, invite them to take part. And then we would hope that we see you all back here in January. We'll be doing this again. And we promise to, as a leadership team, publish the schedule of events for the next year so that you can be sure to put those on your calendar. So we'll be rolling those out soon, okay? Any other questions before we all log off? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you